What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web warrior fanatic, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys how to play Lorcana. This video will just be a step-by-step tutorial teaching you guys how to play the game, and I'll be simulating two decks right here. Alright, so the main goal in Lorcana is to win by gaining 20 lore. You use anything that you want to count the lore. For me, I just have this random app here on my phone, so if I gain a lore for the first player, it's going to be here, for the second player, it's going to be here, and all you have to do is hit 20 in order to win. So let's go ahead and reset everything back to 0. Whenever you're playing in Lorcana, you can have a deck of a minimum of 60 cards, and you can choose two different ink colors whenever you're building your deck. So this deck right here is an Elsa deck, where I chose the purple color Amethyst and the red color Ruby. So every single card in this deck must either be Ruby or Amethyst. And Elsa is the main card of this deck right here, so we have a bunch of Elsas and some Olafs in this deck as well. For the opponent's deck right here, this is actually my wife's deck. Hopefully she's okay with me using this deck for this learn to play video. She's using the sapphire color, so blue right here, and also ruby, so red. So these are her two colors. So every single card in this deck is going to be with sapphire or ruby. And this is an Ana deck here with Ana, and we also have like a knight Ana in here as well. So it's going to be kind of thematic with Elsa versus Ana. I don't know if that's good or bad to have the two sisters fight each other, but that's what we're going to do here for this video. So let's go ahead and just get these decks super quickly shuffled up. And I'm going to shuffle up this deck right here. So basically the first player to hit 20 lore right here will win the game. And every single character can help you gain lore in a certain type of way. So let's go ahead and jump into the first turn here. So normally you can decide which player goes first any way that you want. The normal thing that a lot of people do is just rolling dice right here. So whoever gets the highest number can just decide who goes first. For us, we're just going to have this player right here go first. So the first thing that we do is draw up to your hand of 7. So you can get to draw up to 7 cards. And then whenever you look at your hand, each player is allowed to do something called a mulligan. Mulligan means if you don't like any specific cards in your hand, you can put them down and draw back up to 7. This is just so if you have really bad luck, you can kind of counteract that. So for me, I'm going to decide to, basically some tips for mulliganing is you want cards you can play very, very early on. So every single card right here, let's take a look at this Olaf, for example. Here's a stat line here of 1 cost, 1 strength, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. I'm going to put all the cards here on the right of the screen so you guys can see it close up. But this Olaf also has no effect. So the cost for a card is right here. You must pay 1 ink or exert 1 ink in order to play this character down. So since he's 1 cost, that's fairly cheap. I want to keep him in my opening hand because he's going to be very easy to get out early on. This Elsa right here, for example, is a 5 cost character, which means that I won't be able to play her unless I have 5 ink. And then like this Elsa right here, for example, which is like the main Elsa of the deck, is 8 ink, which means that I really won't be able to play this card down until like very late game. So for my mulligan here, I probably want to mulligan these expensive cards that I won't be able to play super early. So I'm going to hold on to this Olaf here, which is 1 cost to play. This Donald Duck is 2 cost. This card's a location, it's 3 costs. I'm going to hold on to these 3 cards, and I'm going to mulligan these 4 cards. So if you do a mulligan in your Lorcana, you just put them face down, and you draw back up to your hands at a 7. So I'm going to hold on to these cards right here and draw back up to 7. And I'm going to show you guys my hand, but normally you don't want to show your opponent your hand. Okay, so I drew some other 2 cost cards right here with the medallion weights and the hey, but I also drew a 7 cost card and a 6 cost card right here with the Madame Medusa. So it's a decent hand, but the 6 drop and 7 drop I probably don't want right now in my opening hand. Then after you do that, you can shuffle these cards back into your deck. So I'm going to shuffle these cards back in here. And you do not have to do a mulligan if you don't want to, but usually it's recommended so you can try to get the cards that you're looking for to start off the game. So everyone can do that. So I did my mulligan, and let me do my wife's deck here. So she would just draw 7 cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so for her, I'm gonna have her keep this 1 drop Mulan, and then she has a 3 drop right here. Let's keep this Mickey right here as well, and we're gonna have her mulligan 4 cards as well. So we're gonna draw 4 more back up to her hand of 7, and we're gonna shuffle these cards back into her deck right here. All right, we're just gonna do a quick shuffle. All right, and then let me fix the deck right here, and then I'm going to put her hand out of the screen here. All right, guys, so let's just go ahead and get started here. So whoever goes first, so the player right here is going to be the player that's going to go first. You do not get to draw during your first turn. So normally in Lorcana, when a turn begins, there's 3 steps: ready, set, draw. Ready means you ready up all of your cards. Set means you initiate all of your start turn effects, and then draw means you get to draw a card. But because the first player gets an advantage, that player does not get to draw a card. So normally I will be able to draw when my turn begins, but right now I won't be able to because I'm the first player. Then I have to, I can do anything I want during my turn, and I can do anything in any order. So I can ink cards or I can play cards down. So like I said earlier, if we look at this Olaf right here, he costs 1 to play, and I currently do not have any ink. In Lorcana, you must use ink to pay cards. So let's go ahead and ink something. So for example, I can ink this Hey Hey right here. Hey Hey is a 2-drop character with 2 strength and 1 willpower. Strength is the attack, willpower is basically the hit points or the life of a character, and he also has an effect. So I can ink him because if you look around this border right here of the cost of 2, it has like this thing right here, which means that he is inkable. There are some cards, for example, like this Be Prepared card right here, which is 7-drop. It's uninkable because it doesn't have that border. So this card right here, I will not be able to ink. But the Hey Hey does count as an inkable card, so I'll ink it. To ink in Lorcana, all you gotta do is put it face down into your ink well, which is usually gonna be this bottom row of cards right here. So I don't have anything in here, but I can put Hey here, face down into it, and that'll be my inking. Every single turn, each player is allowed to ink 1 time manually. But if a card effect tells you that you can put something into your inkwell, then you can do that unlimited amount of times. But you only do that 1 time manually, right? And whenever you ink, you always show your opponent what you're inking. So normally this would be my hand, right? My opponent won't be able to see. If I want to ink a card, I have to show them I'm going to ink this Hey Hey right here because I need to show them that it's an inkable card. If I don't show them, I could just secretly ink like an uninkable card, like to Be Prepared, and just put it down here, and that would be kind of cheating, right? So I have to show my opponent, I'm going to ink this, and then I can ink the Hey here. All right, then if I want to play a character, all I have to do is pay for its cost. This will apply for any card that you have. So the Olaf that we talked about is 1 cost. So if I exert 1 ink, I can play the Olaf here. And this ink right now is now used. So I cannot exert it again to play another character. Inks can only be exerted to play a character if they are readied up, right? So right now, since I exerted it to play the Olaf is now in play. In Lorcana, there's a thing called ink drying, which means every single time you play a character, you have to wait for their ink to dry before you can use them to do anything. So by an action that a character can do, they can challenge, which means use their attacks out of 1. They can exert to attack a character. They can also exert to sing songs, and they can also exert to gain lore equal to their lore stat right here. So Olaf has 1 lore. So if I could have him exert to gain lore, I could exert him here, and I'll just gain 1 lore. But I cannot do that because his ink is drying. So after I play him down right here, that's all I can do during my turn because I cannot ink any more cards, so I can't play anything else. And Olaf cannot do anything because his ink is drying. If you played other games before, this term is usually called summoning sickness. So the character would just have to wait a turn before it can actually do anything. But if there's any other cards that can refer to a character, like do damage to or something like that, that can resolve immediately. You do not have to wait for a character to be done drying to do damage or to banish it. Okay, so I'm going to end my turn. I'm going to pass over to the other player's turn now. Now for the opponent's turn here, I'm going to go through it a little bit more quickly since I really just want to explain my turn for you guys to understand, but the opponent can just do their own thing. So first, they read up all the cards. For the step 1, there's nothing to ready because they don't have any cards. Start turn effects, the set effects will happen. There are nothing. Then they get to draw a card because they are not the first player. This player is going to ink a Mulan here, which as you guys can see is an inkable card. So they put it into their inkwell. Then they can exert 1 ink to play a Mulan. It is a 1-drop character right here with 2 strength and 3 willpower. This character enters play with 2 damage. So you can use anything you want to track damage. Most people use dice. So we're going to put a dice right here of 2 just to show that this Mulan has 2 damage on it. So even though it has 3 life, it has 2 damage, which means it only has 1 life left. So if it takes 1 more damage, it will get banished. And this also has a lore of 1. That's going to end the opponent's turn. They're going to pass it back over to my turn. Whenever my turn begins, I'm going to do the 3 steps again. Ready, so I get to ready up all my cards. I get to ready up my ink. Set start turn effects, I don't have anything, and then I can draw a card now. I drew into this Donald Duck right here, so this is my current hand. What I'm going to do is I'm going to ink the medallion waves right here. As you guys can see, it has the little border, so that means it is inkable. So I'm going to show my opponent. I'm going to ink it. Then I can exert 2 ink here. So I can play a 2-cost card from my hand. I'm going to play this Donald Duck right here. It's a 2-cost card with 2 attack, 3 willpower, and 1 lore. Also does not have an effect, so it comes down right here. This Donald Duck's ink is currently drying, so he cannot do anything, but this Olaf can do something. I'm going to have him exert himself so he can quest for 1. So I gain 1 lore. The other options for his Olaf is he could have also attacked or sung a song. The Olaf can attack, but there are no possible targets for the Olaf to attack, because in the game of Lorcana, in order to attack a character, that other character must be exerted. So Mulan right here is not vulnerable to attack because she is not exerted. If she was turned sideways here, then the Olaf can exert himself to challenge this Mulan. But since she is drying and she couldn't do anything, the Olaf here is not able to challenge her, so I'm just going to exert him to gain 1 lore. The reason that I did that is because even if this Mulan attacks my Olaf with her 2 attack, my Olaf here has 3 willpower, which means that he only takes 2 damage and stay alive, and then his 1 strength will knock out the Mulan, even though she has 3 willpower, because she already has that 2 damage with her effect. The main reason why this Mulan kind of has a negative effect is because she's only 1 cost with 2 strength and 3 willpower, which is a really good stat line. It's a very strong stat line. So in order to balance that out, she comes in with 2 damage. So that is all I can do. I'm going to end my turn and pass the turn back over to the other player. When my opponent's turn begins, they're going to ready up all their cards, so they get to ready up their ink. Start turn effects, there is nothing, and then they get to draw a card here. My opponent is going to ink a Greystone Dragon, which is an inkable card, so you can put it into their inkwell. Then they're going to exert 2 ink here, so they can play an Aurora, which is a 2-cost card, so you exert 2 ink to play it. It has 1 strength, 3 willpower, 1 lore, and has an effect called Ward. Opponents can't choose this character except to challenge. That means if I have a card like Madame Medusa, which is in my hand, it says when you play this character, banish a chosen opposing character with 3 attack or less. I cannot choose Aurora for this effect because she has Ward, so I only challenge her by exerting my characters to attack. I cannot use other effects to take her out. Another card that I have in my hand though, the Be Prepared, says banish all characters. This will bypass the Aurora's Ward because it's not choosing her, it's just banishing every single character in play. So this will work to banish the Aurora. So for my opponent, the Aurora's ink is drying, so she cannot do anything. The Mulan could either attack this Olaf or she could exert to quest for 1. I'm not going to have the Mulan do anything because if she quests for 1 here, for example, then during my turn, I can have the Olaf just take her out by challenging her, and then the Olaf will live. So since the opponent wants to keep the Mulan alive here, they are not going to gain any lore and just keep her upright. That will end their turn. They're going to pass it back over to me. Back to my turn. I'm going to ready up all my cards with step 1. Start turn effects. I don't have anything, and I get to draw a card here, which is another Donald Duck. I'm going to ink this Donald Duck right here because he is an inkable card, and I can exert 3 ink so I can play this location called the Library. Locations in Lorcana have some unique effects. So Library here is a 3-cost card, so I have to exert 3 ink to play it. That still works the exact same way. It has 1 for the move cost. That means I have to exert 1 ink to move a character to the library. It has 8 willpower, which means that characters can still attack and do damage to it. If it takes 8 damage, then the library is defeated, and it will get banished and go into my discard pile. And the library also has an effect here called whenever a character is banished while here, you may draw a card. That means if I pay the 1 move cost to move a character here, and they get banished, then I can draw a card. The library also has a passive lore stat here of 1, which means that star turn effects that I was talking about, where you ready your cards and you set star turn effects, I will automatically gain 1 lore if the library is in play. I have already inked this turn, so I cannot ink again. Otherwise, I would love to move a character to the library because it costs 1 ink to do that, but I don't have any more ink to do that. So I'm not going to have my characters move to the library, and I'm just going to have them both quest here because they cannot challenge, because in Lorcana, characters are not vulnerable to being challenged when they are readied. We're only allowed to have our characters challenge and exert a character, so since my opponent purposely did not exert the characters, they are protected. In this situation, both my characters' inks have already dried, so they can do something, so I'm going to have them quest. So Donald's going to quest here for 1, so I get another lore, and then Olaf's going to quest here for 1 as well, so I get another lore. That's going to end my turn. I'm going to pass it over to my opponent. So the 3 steps again: ready up all your cards, set star turn effects happen, there are nothing, and then draw a card. My opponent is going to ink a Moana, which, as you guys can see with the border, is an inkable card. Then they can exert 3 ink right here, so they can play an item called the Greystone Dragon, which costs 3 to play. This item enters play exerted. You can also exert this item to put a character card from your discard pile into your inkwell face down and exert it. This is a great way to ramp up and get more ink because you can put an additional ink in addition to your 1 manual ink per turn. However, this item will enter play exerted. In the game of Lorcana, items do not have to wait to dry, so they can activate the turn that they are played. But the Great Stone Dragon, however, does come into play exerted. Even though its ink is already done dry and it can do something, it's exerted right now, and you need to exert it in order to use its effect. If you guys can see that symbol right there next to the Awaken, that means that you must exert this card in order to trigger its effect. Some characters will also have that symbol, which means that you must exert that character in order to trigger its effect. If it's an item, it doesn't have to dry, so you can exert the item right away to use the effect. But for characters, they cannot exert themselves the turn they are played. They have to wait a turn for their ink to dry. Then you can exert them for their effect. Player 2 is going to exert the Aurora to quest here for 1. So they get on the board here with 1 lore. And the reason that they want to do that is because if I attack the Aurora and take it out, they can exert the Great Stone Dragon next turn to put the Aurora from the discard pile into the Inkwell, face down and exert it to get some more ramp. And in order for me to banish the Aurora, I need both of my characters here to attack it, right? With the 2 attack and 1 attack, because the Aurora has 3 life. If it's a Mulan, for example, I can just take it out with 1 character and they will live, but I need both characters to get rid of the Aurora, which means I can't quest for 2 if I choose to do that. So that's why they want to do that. They're going to end their turn and pass it back over to me. So I get to ready up all my cards. Set start turn effects. Now I'm going to gain 1 lore because I have a location play with that passive lore counter. So I go up to 4 automatically, and then I'm going to draw a card. So I just drew a Medallion Waits right here, and this is my hand. I only have 2 cards that are inkable, so these cards cannot be inked, but I really want to save this Donald Duck because it's a cool shift effect that I want to use later. So I'm actually not going to choose to ink this turn. I don't have to ink every single turn if I don't want to. I'm going to exert 2 ink right here so I can play an item, the Medallion Waits. Unlike the Great Stone Dragon, the Medallion Waits do not come in exerted, so I can't exert to use the effect right now because it has an exert symbol, but it says exert and spend 2 ink. That symbol right there means that I must also exert 2 more ink in order to trigger this effect. So I have to exert the Medallion Waits and also exert 2 ink. I do not have 2 more ink to exert, so I cannot use the effect right now, even though I played it this turn. So for right now, the Medallion Waits are just going to sit there and not really do anything. I can exert 1 ink right here for this move cost, so I can move a character to the location of the library. I am going to go ahead and move Olaf here to the library. That means if Olaf is ever banished, then that means I can draw a card. That will help me hopefully get something so I can ink down. And I definitely want to have the Olaf and the Donald Duck both attack. So the Olaf's going to challenge the Aurora. Let me do them one at a time here. So Olaf's going to exert to challenge the Aurora and do 1 damage. And then the Aurora is going to do 1 damage back here to the Olaf. Now, Donald Duck is going to exert himself to challenge the Aurora and do 2 damage because she is exerted, so she is vulnerable for a challenge. That's going to defeat her because 1 + 2 is 3, and that's her willpower here. So she's going to get defeated. And whenever you challenge a character, she's going to do that 1 damage back to Donald Duck. In the game of Lorcana, whenever you challenge a character, that character's strength will attack back to the challenging character. So Donald takes 1 damage back from that Aurora. That is going to end my turn. I'm going to pass it back over to my opponent. So they get to ready up all their cards, and then they get to ready up the Great Stone Dragon. Start turn effects, they don't have anything, and they can draw a card here. My opponent is going to exert 3 ink right here, so they can play a 3-cost character, Mickey Mouse Detective. He has 3 costs, but he is uninkable, but that doesn't matter because he's coming into play as a character. He has 1 strength, 3 willpower, and has an effect. When you play this character, you may put the top card of your deck into your Inkwell face down and exerted. My opponent's going to do that. So they're going to get an additional ink right here. Then they can also exert the Great Stone Dragon for its effect. You can exert this card, put a character card from your discard pile into your Inkwell face down and exert. So they get another ink right here. So now they have 5 ink, and they have not even inked this turn. So they are going to ink a Moana right here, and this card will come into Inkwell not exerted because whenever you manual ink, you don't have to exert that ink. So now they have 6 ink to my 3, and they can play some more expensive cards here next turn. They won't be able to do it this turn because most of their ink is already exerted and they cannot ready them up and exert them again. But next turn, they can definitely get some powerful stuff down. They are going to choose to just hold here and not do anything with the Mulan. The Mickey Mouse can't do anything because his ink is drying, but they want to really plan up for that next turn. So they're just going to pass the turn back over to me. And it's my turn. So I get to ready up all my characters. Set start turn effects will happen, which will be the library here gaining me 1 lore. And then I can draw a card, which is a Madame Medusa. So unfortunately, I drew another uninkable card, which means I cannot put these cards in my inkwell. I'm going to choose to not do anything and just hold all these cards in my hand because like I said before, I really don't want to ink this Donald Duck because I want to show you guys how to shift in this game. So I'm just going to hold these cards in my hand. My characters cannot challenge my opponent's characters because they are not exerted, which means that they are not vulnerable for a challenge. So all I'm going to do is use this move cost right here, exert 1 ink, to move Donald Duck to the location. So now both Olaf and Donald Duck are in the library and have both these guys quest. So Donald quests for 1, I go to 6, and then Olaf's going to quest for 1, go up to 7. That is going to end my turn. I'm going to pass it back over to my opponent. And it's going to be really scary right now because my opponent's going to ready up all their ink. And they have 6 ink right now in that ink well. They get to ready up the Great Stone Dragon, set start turn effects, don't have anything, and they can draw a card here. My opponent is going to ink a McDuck Manor. It's an inkable card. Put it into an inkwell. Then now they can exert 4, so they can play this on right here, the True Hearted. So she has an effect whenever this character quests, all of your other hero characters get +1 lore for this turn. So Mickey Mouse is a hero, and so is the Mulan. So if she can quest, these characters will also have plus an additional lore. However, she cannot quest the turn she has played because her ink is drying. So she can't do anything right now. And my opponent will also exert 3 ink right here, so they can play this Sisu right here, which is called the Daring Visitor. It's evasive, which means that only characters with that evasive keyword can challenge this character. She also has an effect called Bring on the Heat. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 1 attack or less. So she's going to automatically banish this Olaf right here because he has 1 attack. So he will get banished, go into my discard pile. And then with the effect of the library, whenever a character is banished here, I may draw a card. So I'm going to draw a card here with the library's effect. And then my opponent is going to choose to not do anything else with the characters because they don't want them to die. Because what they want to do is quest with the on right here. Give all their heroes +1 lore, and they can all quest to gain massive lore. So they are going to end their turn right here, and let me just set their ink so you guys can see that they have 7 ink. And they're going to pass it back over to me. So it's back to my turn, and it's looking really scary. So I'm going to ready up all my cards. Start turn effects, I have the 1 lore from the library, so I go up to 8, and I get to draw a card. Finally, something to ink. I'm going to ink the Teeth and Ambitions right here. So I now have 4 ink, and I'm going to exert all the ink right here so I can shift onto Donald Duck. I can play this Donald Duck right here. He's a Pie Slinger, so he costs 5, but I only exerted 4 ink right here because of the shift effect he has right here. It says shift 4. You may pay 4 ink to play this on top of one of your other characters named Donald Duck. So I can play him on top of this Donald Duck. When I do that, his ink is already dry because it's this Donald Duck that already had his ink dried. He's transforming into this Donald Duck, the Pie Slinger. So I can pay less ink to put it on top, and because his ink is dry, that means that he could challenge or quest this turn. But he also takes on the 1 damage at the previous Donald Duck because it's a Sam Donald. So he's going to have 1 damage, but he has 6 willpower now, so he has 5 willpower left. He has this effect called Humble Pie. When you play this character, if you use shift to play him, which I did, each opponent loses 2 lore. So my opponent's going to drop back down to 0 lore here with Donald Duck's effect. He also has another effect called Raging Duck. While an opponent has 10 or more lore, this character gets +6 strength. So currently he does not have that because my opponent has 0 lore, so he's only going to be at 3 strength right here. I think what I'm going to do with this Donald Duck is just have him exert himself so he can quest for 1, so I go from 8 up to 9. Because he has 6 willpower, I'm thinking that I don't want my opponent to quest because if they have all their characters challenged into Donald Duck, he will banish a lot of them. Not the Anna, but a lot of them, and then they won't gain a lot of lore. So that's kind of a little diversion tactic that I'm trying to do to prevent them from getting a ton of lore. So that's going to end my turn. I'm going to pass it back over to my opponent, and they get to ready up all their cards so they can ready up all their inkwell. Start turn effects, they don't have anything, and then they can draw a card right here. My opponent right now cannot use a Great Stone Dragon because they do not have any characters in their discard pile for them to exert to put into inkwell. So the Great Stone Dragon is just going to stay right here. But what they can do is exert 6 ink right here so they can play a Madame Medusa. Madame Medusa says whenever you play this character, banish a chosen opposing character with 3 attack or less. The Donald Duck has 3 attack or less, so they can banish it right away. So Donald Duck will be banished. Whenever a shifted card leaves play, both cards go to the same place. So the original version of the card and the shifted version of the card will always go to the same spot. So if an effect returns them to my hand, for example, both cards will go back to my hand, or if they're banished like in this example, they will both go into the discard pile. That was really bad for me, but fortunately with the effect of the library, when a character is banished while here, I can draw a card. Now, although the Madame Medusa just entered play, so her ink is drying, she can't do anything, every other character can quest. So my opponent is first going to have this on right here, the True Hearted Quest. So they have a lore stat of 2, so they're going to gain 2 lore here. Then she has an effect Let me help you. When this character quests, all of your other hero characters gain +1 lore this turn. Mulan is a hero, so she has 2 lore now. She's going to quest for 2. Mickey Mouse is a hero. He now has additional lore, so he also has 2. He's going to quest for 2. And then Sisu is also a hero, so her 1's going to get an additional 1 with Anna's effect. She's going to quest here for 2 as well. So my opponent already caught up to me, getting up to 8 lore in 1 turn. They're going to end their turn and then pass it back over to me. So I'm going to ready up all my cards. Set start turn effects. I have the library here to help me gain 1 lore. I got the 10, and I can draw a card. I'm going to ink a Madam Mim Snake here, which is an inkable card. And I can exert 5 ink right now. So I can play the card that I just drew. Maui, hero to all. He's 5 cost, so I played him down. He has 6 strength and 5 willpower. He also has an effect called Rush, which means that this character can challenge the turn that they are played, and he also has an effect called Reckless. This character cannot quest and must challenge each turn if able to. If you guys notice here, he does not have a quest stat, so he can never quest. He must challenge if able to, and he can also Rush, which means he can challenge this turn right now, even though his ink is not done drying. If you play a character with Rush, they cannot sing songs the turn they are played, they cannot exert themselves to use an effect the turn they are played, and they cannot quest the turn they are played. They can only challenge the turn they are played with their Rush effect. So I'm going to have Maui here challenge into this Anna because she is giving my opponent way too much lore. So he's going to do 6 damage to the Anna. She only has 4 willpower, so she'll be banished. She's going to do 2 damage back here to Maui. And then this Anna will now be banished. And that is all I can do because I have no more ink to do anything. So that's going to end my turn. I'm going to pass it back over to my opponent. They get to ready up all the cards in their inkwell. Ready up all their characters. And then set start turn effects. They don't have anything. And then they are going to draw a card. So this time, since they have a character in their discard pile, they can immediately exert the Great Stone Dragon to put this card into the inkwell, face down, and exert it. Then they are going to spend 3 ink right here so they can play another Mickey Mouse, the detective. So with his effect, they get another ink into their inkwell, face down and exerted. Let me just make sure everything is facing the right way. And then they can exert another 3 ink right here so they can swarm the field and play a Hans, the Noble Scoundrel. He has an effect here called Royal Schemes. When you play this character, if a princess or queen character is in play, gain 1 lore. Mulan is a princess character, so my opponent automatically gains 1 lore, going up to 9. This Mickey Mouse and this Hans, their ink is drying, so they cannot do anything. But all the other characters that my opponent has can quest. So they could also choose to exert to challenge the Mao here. But I don't think they want to do that. They just want to try to get to 20 lore as soon as possible so that they can win this game. So they're going to exert the Sisu to quest here for 1. Exert the Mickey Mouse, quest for another 1. Exert the Mulan to quest for another 1. And exert the Madame Medusa to quest for another 1. That is going to end my opponent's turn because they cannot do anything else and they have no more cards in their hand either. But next turn, they could quest for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and they could win the game. So I really got to do something right now. So it's going to be back to my turn. I'm going to ready up all my cards. Set start turn effects. I'm going to gain 1 lore here with the library, and I can draw a card. I'm going to ink a Maleficent Dragon right here, which is an inkable card. And then I can exert 6 ink here. So I can play my own Madame Medusa. So she has that same effect. When you play this character, banish a chosen opposing character with 3 attack or less. I'm going to actually banish the Hans here because he has 3 attack or less, but he has 2 lore. So I really want to take him out here because I'm scared that he's going to help my opponent gain more lore. So I'm going to banish him with the Madame Medusa effect. Madame Medusa cannot do anything because her ink is dry, but Maui can challenge here again, and he must challenge if he's able to because he has Reckless. So I'm going to have the Maui here swing into, let's hit this Mulan right here, because they all quest for 1 anyway, so it doesn't matter that much, but this Mulan has a possible shift target, so I want to take her out. She's going to do 2 damage back to the Maui, so Maui now has 2 to 4 damage, and he's going to have 1 willpower left, and he's going to take out this Mulan here. All right, and that's all I can do. I'm going to end my turn, so I pass it back over to my opponent. They get to ready up all their cards whenever their turn begins. And then ready up all the characters. Start turn effects, they don't have anything, and they can draw a card. So what my opponent's going to do is they're going to exert the Great Stone Dragon here to put a character card from this card pile into their inkwell face down and exert it to just get more ramp because why not? If they get an expensive card, they can play it immediately. And then they are just going to have all their characters quest here. So Mickey Mouse for 1, Medusa for 1, Mickey for 1, and Caesar for 1. It's going to be a total of 4. So they go from 13 up to 17. They are 3 lore away from winning this game right now. They drew into a Flounder. So Flounder is a 3-drop card with 2 strength, 2 willpower, and you can quest for 2. If you have a character named Arrow in play, you can pay 1 less ink to play his character. They are not going to play his character right now because they see that I have 6 ink. And it's very well known that in the game of Lorcana, there's a card called Be Prepared for 7 ink. And since I'm playing Ruby, I have access to that card. If I play that card, I banish every single character in play. Because even if they play the Flounder right now, they have to wait a turn for its ink to dry, and it cannot quest right away. So they're going to save this in their hand and then pass it back over to me. So my turn, I'm going to ready up all my cards. Set star turn effects happen, so I can gain 1 lore with the library again, so I go up to 12, and I can draw a card. And if you guys remember, I do have that Be Prepared here for my first turn. It costs 7 ink, so I do need to play a card. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this Maui right here. And then before I play the Be Prepared, by the way, says banish all characters, right? So that includes my characters. I want my characters to do something first before they get banished. I cannot move them to a library here because it costs 1 ink to move a character to a library. So I need also my ink to play the Be Prepared. But I can at least have my Madame Medusa quest here for 1. Maui cannot quest. There's no point in having him challenge a character because he is going to, I'm going to banish all the characters anyways, right? Then I'm going to exert all of my 7 ink right here. So I can play Be Prepared. Banish all characters. So that will knock out the Maui, the Madame Medusa, and it will also take out all my opponent's characters. A complete board wipe here. And unfortunately, none of my characters were at the library, so I do not get to draw any cards with this card's effect. I have no more ink to do anything. That's going to end my turn. Pass it back over to my opponent. They get to ready up all their cards, set star turn effects, they don't have anything, and then they get to draw a card here. They drew into Sisu. So my opponent's going to exert the Great Stone Dragon and get another card from the character, another character card from this card pile, put it into ink wall face down and exerted. They're going to spend 3 ink right here, so they can just go ahead and play this Sisu, and they're going to spend another 3 ink here, so they can play this Flounder. So next turn, they can quest for 1, 2, 3, 4, and win the game. And they're hoping that I don't have another Be Prepared to take out all the characters. That's going to end the turn. I'm going to pass it back over to me. I get to write up all my cards. So my 7 ink. And then set star turn effects. I have the library, so I gain 1 lore. Going 13 to 14, and I'm going to draw a card. I can exert 6 of my ink right here. So I can play a Madame Medusa here again. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 3 attack or less. Currently here, the Sisu has an effect called Surge of Power. This character gets +1 attack for each card in your opponent's hand. So I have 2 cards in my hand right here. So this Sisu has 3 attack. The Madame Medusa could banish it, or it can banish the Flounder. I'm going to go ahead and just have the Madame Medusa. Let's banish the Sisu right here. So even though the ink is drying, I can still banish that character. However, I cannot prevent my opponent from questing with the Flounder here and getting up to 19 lore. I'm going to spend 1 ink to move my Madame Medusa to the library. And my Madame Medusa cannot do anything because her ink is drying. She can't even attack even if her ink was dried because this character is not vulnerable to attack because it is readied up. That's going to end my turn. I'm going to pass it back over to my opponent. They can ready up all their cards. Set star turn effects, don't have anything, and they can draw a card here. They're going to go ahead and exert the Great Stone Dragon, get another card from their discard pile into ink wall face down exerted, and spend 3 ink so they can play another of that Sisu that they just drew. This character gets +1 attack for each card in your opponent's hand. And then they're going to have the Flounder here quest here for 2, so they go from 17 up to 19. And a Flounder here has an effect, support. Whenever this character quests, you may add their attack to another chosen character's attack this turn. So now this Sisu will have the 1, with its effect, it gets +2, so it's going to be 3, +2, there's going to have 5 attack, but only for this turn. So they're going to end their turns back to my turn now, and the Sisu drops back down to 3 attack because the support will wear off. And they have 3 attack because I have 2 cards in my hand, and with their effect, it's going to be 2 + 1. So it's back to me. I'm going to ready up all my cards. And I think I have 7 ink here still. And I get 1 lore with the library, and I can draw a card. So what I'm going to do here, because I need to have 8 ink, I'm going to ink this Maui. This Maui is really good because he can rush, but right now I need to take care of whatever my opponent plays, not rush into already exerted characters. So I'm going to go ahead and ink this Maui right here. Then I can have my Madame Medusa challenge the Flounder here. So it's going to do 4 damage. The Flounder deals 2 damage back, and the Flounder will be defeated. But my opponent will win next turn because of the Caesar's effect, or the Caesar can just quest here for 2, and bring it up to 20 lore. So I need to spend 2 ink right here, so I can play a Madame Mim Snake. Whenever you play this character, banish her or return another chosen character of yours to your hand. I'm going to return the Madame Medusa here to my hand. Then now I can spend 6 ink right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Exert all that to play the Madame Medusa back down because she has an on-play effect. When you play this character, banish chosen opposing character with 3 attack or less. The Caesar has 1 strength, 1 attack. I have 1 card in my hand, so it has +1. So it's 2 attack right here. That's going to banish the Caesar right here. And then that's going to end my turn. I'll pass it back over to my opponent. It's going to be a really close game. They're going to ready up all their cards. Set start turn effects. They don't have anything, and they get to draw a card here. So they're going to be top decking, and they drew into an Anna. So they can exert 4 ink to play the Anna here. Her ink is drying. She can't do anything. They can exert the Great Stone Dragon to get another ink. And they don't even need that much ink right now, but they have like over 10. And then since the Anna cannot quest, they're going to pass it back over to me. My turn, I'm going to ready up all my cards. So get all my ink back and readied, and I get to draw a card here. And in start turn effects with a library, I also get a lore. I mixed up the order. I should have actually gotten the lore first before I drew the card. So this is my hand right here, which is pretty crazy because I drew into the Elsa Spirit of Winter. So she is an 8 cost card. I am going to go ahead and exert all my 8 ink. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All this ink right here. I'm going to exert all of it, and I can play Elsa Spirit of Winter. She has an effect called Deep Freeze. When you play this character, exert up to 2 chosen characters. They cannot ready at the start of their next turn. So I'm going to exert Anna here, and I don't want to exert anyone else, so just 1 character right here. Since she is exerted now, she is not vulnerable for a challenge. I'm going to have Madame Medusa challenge her for 4, do 4 damage, take her out. She would do 2 damage back to the Medusa. And the Elsa cannot do anything because her ink is drying, but I can have the Madame Mim Snake here, quest for 1. I go to 17, and none of my characters are at the library here. So let me just put it like this so I can differentiate that. And that's going to end my turn. I'm going to pass it back over to my opponent, and we'll see what they get. Can they end it here? Do they have a way to gain 1 lore without questing? And they do have some ways in this deck, but they did not draw it. They drew into a Sisu, so they can just play it here by spending 3 ink, and this should be readied up. But they can exert again to get another character card from this discard pile into their Ink Wolf face unexerted. And they're going to end their turn, pass it back over to me. I gain 1 lore with the library, ready up all my cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and I can draw a card. And all I'm going to do here is just have this Elsa quest for 3, which puts me up to 20. Well, that was a really close game, guys. And I just want to say that was not scripted at all. This was a test play by me, so I played both of the decks, but I wasn't planning on particularly having one deck win or the other. I just wanted to show off as much different card types and different effects as I could. But yeah, Lorcana is actually a fairly simple game. It's very easy to pick up and learn, but difficult to master. I hope you guys enjoy this step-by-step tutorial with me. If you have any questions, feel free to comment down below. I respond to all the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video.